Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hi, this is Andrew Neal from Ably House. We get a lot of questions on how we make these videos, so we thought we'd do a video on how we make the videos. We're going to take you through all the kind of steps and what mics we use to record, the kind of equipment we use to record, how we mix everything, and come to a finished product from the audio standpoint. All right, everybody. So we got the session up. We get a lot of questions about the session. Let's start with the drums here. That seems to be the first session. We got very good source material coming from there.
Indeed.
Brendan, our drummer, is extremely meticulous about his drums and cymbals and heads and tunings and all that stuff, and we're very thankful. So that's a great place to start. It's not just some DW drum kit or something. It's like the rooftop kit.
And also a lot of research into the microphones. So
yes.
He's got the D20.
On the kick. Then
the RE11.
RE11s were on the, which are kind of in a similar vein of a D19, just kind of vintage dynamic mic on the toms. Then we got the D19, it's the overhead, which is like the main Beatle overhead mic and tom mic. It's also the Lady Madonna vocal mic and a talkback mic for the board. As far as I'm concerned with any sort of anything the engineers say or any sort of records, Ringo's snare is almost exclusively always mic'd from the bottom. That's how you get that crack. So there's a lot of times where people try to record Beatle drums and there's a 57 on the top of the snare. I never really did that. So, it's always very important to me that you mic the bottom snare for a good crack of a Ringo sound, especially in the later stuff. Early days, a lot of times it was just bass drum and overhead. And then mid-60s and on, they started to mic the toms, sometimes underneath the toms as well. Okay, so let's take a look at all the tracks and how we're treating them. Start with the kick, here we go, beginning of the song. It's got the D12 mic on it, and got some EQ on this. Got some high end, boosting some lows, boasting some lows. I put this almost on every channel. It's a Waves plugin that replicates the Red board. There's a few models of it. This is like the early Red board model. I'd go with what I think sounds best on each track and whatnot. Got a little bass lift on it, boosting the bass. Obviously want some low end out of that kick drum, clearly. Okay, snare time. Looks like it got a little boost at 100 there, kind of just feathering everything else a little bit. Same deal. This one is now the White Album Red board plugin. Obviously, I think that sounded better. Let's go to the overhead. Probably, especially Beatle stuff, probably the most important of the drum mics. And I do this too. When we're recording, I listen to the track. A lot of times Beatles are playing live in a room together. So I did the bass and then reamped the bass while we were recording the drums to get that bleed going. Because a big part of the sound of each of the songs is the bleed of each instrument in the room. Overhead, let's check out what that is. Pretty minimal EQ, just dipping out frequencies that don't sound totally right to me. What that sound like? Not much of a difference, but it all adds up. Toms. Good time for the toms to come right there. Okay. Same deal, about the same EQ as the overhead. Same Red board plugin. Okay. And then I have all those sending to a drum pre channel. So this is the full drum kit now. And I probably, some people might give me flack for the amount of plugins I have on each channel, but
Oh well.
oh well. So once again, I have all these going to a Redboard plugin, kind of crapping it out, probably too much. Whoops, don't judge me. Then into a Fairchild emulator. Ringo's drums are commonly compressed with a Fairchild. And it's moving a little bit right there. I have a lot of compressor stages, and then I have a tape emulator. I go through and try to get the best sound with that. The most important thing is it's kind of like, I feel like a lot of the compression comes from the tape as well too, as opposed to over compressing a drum sound. This next step is hilarious. This seems to me to give the White Album sound everything. I run it through a Silvertone amp head, everything, or most stuff. Let's hear it without. So this before, and then
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah,
A lot of brightness.
A lot of brightness gives it that thing. Then I have some Pultec emulators on the drums, just trying to get some analog EQ going there. I'm constantly toying with that stuff till it just blends with everything. Okay, let's move on to the bass tracks now. So how we usually record the bass is I get a DI, especially for later Beatles. I think Jeff Emmerich was the person who invented the DI for bass.
That sounds right.
Yeah, he called it direct inject. They started using it during the Pepper sessions. They never used too much of it. I think Glenn John said all the Let It Be album is DI'd, but there's a quote from Jeff Emmerich I love where he says, DI is funny, or this isn't Zach, it's like DI is funny, it's so rich, but it's also feeble. And he's right. Like, there's something that's so rich about a DI, but it's also, like, not as cool as an amp sound, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a blend you can get. So from what I've read, especially around White Album period, Paul's using either the Rick or the Jazz bass through a Fender Bassman amp. And I think they mic'd it with two mics. They used, like, a pencil condenser, and then, I forget, something else. So then the pencil condenser picked up kind of like the more clicky high end, and then something else picked up more of the low end. See, so, yeah, we were doing some sessions for If I Needed Someone last night, and I was plugged into that Faberlux, and then I plugged straight into the custom cab, and it sounded really good, in our opinions. We were really happy with it.
Play the Wolf mic. So the one that's normally a kick drum microphone going inside that hole.
Yeah, this is what we get from this.
Turn that up.
Yeah. So it's just literally all the low end of the bass is that. And then sometimes, you know, you can see there we're using a U47, the warm microphones. It's amazing. We were amazingly satisfied with it. But in this recording, we used a Rode NT5, just a pencil condenser.
Yeah, that's
And
this one.
that mic sounded more like this. So, you know, that's picking up a little more of the click, the kind of the general percussive bass sounds. Then you got this DI, which is kind of a mix of both, but once again, fully DI bass just kind of always, there's something about DI bass inside like a live virtual session that you gotta reamp it to me. It just bothers me, you know. So let's look how I've treated those as well. Start with the MT5, the first one. Looks like you just got some Pultec EQs on there, just mimicking some you know, classic analog EQ and a little simple EQ there. It's all about blending the tracks. And then the low end, got some EQ. That low mic can get super thundery under 50K, so I try to cut some of that out. So it's not totally just rumble. I got some compression on it. I find, so do I have soft on? Yeah. So I find, I do this a lot in Logic where these compressors I really do like, and they have this output distortion setting. And when you click soft, it just adds this sheen and makes everything sound like it's going through a real preamp kind of. So sometimes I put compressors on channels, neither have them barely moving or not even at all, just to put the soft on it to make everything kind of pop a little more and sound more realistic. The DI, I do this a lot with DIs. I put through a fake amp and a compressor, and that gains. Oh yeah, just to phase it, just to invert the phase, so it's not phasing. And the same thing. There's a bass double at one point, and that's what these tracks are. Let me see. So I set the bass to this as well, and this is the main thing we are going for the bass. Yeah, going through an opto compressor, which is On this circuit type, it's vintage oppo, so it's kind of mimicking like the Altec compressors that they mainly used in Paul's bass. Another breadboard plugin, some more Pultec EQ, tape emulator really hitting hard. I feel like that's a big key to bass, is just kind of not overdriving the tape, but really leveling it. And another compressor just leveling off. You know, I try not to overdo everything, but when you underdo it, it doesn't quite sound like as hard-hitting as the records. Okay, let's do some guitar action here.
Nice.
Got the casino. There's 2 casinos going on.
Oh yeah, there's that weird rhythm thing in the
Yes.
second verse, or it's like panned on each side. Like intentionally different.
Yeah, intentionally different. So it was the casino. What did you use amp-wise for this? Do you remember?
I used the newer model of the Vox AC30, the one that we don't like as much.
Right.
And that's why it has a lot of like bad distortion attached to it.
To set this up, there's Vox after 2010 started making these new amps that, in our opinion, were not as good as the ones. Nothing's as good as like a 60 Vox amp, but
like more high end and like sheen to it, which
Yeah.
can be ideal for some people that want to use like distortion and they need that. But like the older stuff where we use like flat wound strings, it's better to have that warm tonality. And the old speakers had more of like just warm like
and
poppiness to it. That was nice.
Right, and there's definitely still obviously high end in Vox amps in general, but it always, those amps always kind of almost had like a solid steady kind of sound to it. But so yeah, we had that amp for a while, and we've, like I said, we're always trying to upgrade and get new stuff and trying to make it as close as possible while just working with what we have. For Beatle guitar amps, they usually mic'd them with either pencil condenser or the standard Neumann condenser without the tubes in it. But just like general condensers, they usually mic'd. I feel like that's the opposite of the recording
Today
method.
people, they just put close mics on everything.
They put close mics, but it's dynamic mics on guitar amps and condensers on drum overheads. And Beatles, it was dynamics for drum overheads and condensers on the guitar mics, which I mean, I can't argue. I don't like the sound of Beatle records. They're great. So let's get back into that, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go to the SG a little bit. Skip ahead to that. It's the same setup. Your AC30 with a pencil condenser on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are all the basic tracks. Now, like I said, a lot of the sounds from these songs come from the room, like the Beatles just playing live in the room and bleed happening in mics. So, with this track especially, like that beginning, you hear the drum and the guitar track and the guitar and the drum track. I have this pedal, it's wonderful, called the Abby Verb, and it's a guitar pedal that mimics the reverb chambers of Studio 2. So I use that a lot. I use that on this. I can even find where all these guitars are setting to, but I'll turn the reverbs off and play the intro, and then I'll turn them back on. Is it going to bus 4? Oh, I see. Yeah, so here's the intro without any reverb on it. All the sounds are good, I think, but it doesn't really sound much like the recording. So if I turn those reverbs back on, you get there's that little delay of the guitar hitting the snare, the overheads and the snare mics, and that just kind of makes a lot of Beatle recordings. Is that unlike today where you set up a click track and then the drummer plays? The Beatles actually were playing together and communicating in a room. Which we also don't do. We're recording.
Yeah, we don't get to do that.
So we take the song itself, put it in Logic, and then we each record our part over the song, try to mimic the song as accurately as possible, but while possibly missing.
We're missing a lot.
We're missing, the communication of the relationship. The Beatles are looking each other in the eye, but we're not. They're doing that to get a feeling in that moment, and they've got that feeling, and we're trying to recreate that feeling. They're making decisions and timing based off of each other, and we're not going to create new timings. We're trying to recreate their.
No,
their
just
timings.
playing with the 4 of them as yourself, you can kind of fit in with them, and then if everyone does that at the same time, they all fit in together.
Right.
It's all just the same take. So.
Yeah, exactly. And we spend a lot of time recording to get the parts right and all that kind of stuff. So that's the general. Oh, right. I forgot to mention the fire
The
bell.
fire bells, yeah.
This is the thing we spent the single most time on. The song's been ready to go for a while, but we just couldn't get this fire bell sound. And do you want to talk about?
Yeah, we
the
tried.
evolution?
I tried a few various pots and pans.
You know,
Doesn't quite have the
doesn't
same
quite have
impact.
it. Yeah.
And so when Daniel here, another person we work with, he said that his dad has a sculpture that's actually made out of one of those fire bells, and I was like, wow, that's perfect. Why don't you just record that? So he wrote out the part and he recorded it, and so we finally have something that's actually accurate.
Yeah, it does sound nice. Let's listen to it.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Pretty good. It's closer than anything else we've done so far.
The one thing he said he didn't have like rubber mallets. He just had like a what do you call it? Wool mallets. They're strung
see.
with the rubber inside the wool,
Yeah.
and so it has a bit more of like a low end attack than we don't know what the Beatles recorded it with.
Yeah.
Something it felt like kind of like a rubber mallet though that had less impact.
Right. And who knows, especially the Beatles around this period, you know, with mics and anything, Ken Scott, who kind of took over for the White Album sessions a lot as the main engineer once Jeff Emmerich couldn't stand the Beatles having one argument and leaving. Sorry, Jeff. You know. Great work, though. Good job. Good job, man. Thanks for everything. But like that, you know, the Beatles just wanted to try different things. So, like, they would open up the mic closet and Paul or John or someone would just point at a mic and go, we're going to use that one. So, you know, once again, you have the general engineer's word of what they generally used, but who knows what they're using as mallets. They could be using, like, teacup handles as mallets on the thing. Who knows?
Exactly.
They just wanted to be crazy and try everything. So whatever you get to sound close is what you get to sound close, you know.
We don't think people are trying to replicate the fire bell besides us, so you have to spend a whole ton of time on it, or like we're not trying to really teach you how to play this part.
Right. We just
really want to know.
We just really care about the recordings, and all of us really care about accurately representing them as best we can, and we're always trying to continually get better and just have a very high quality to what we put out there as a product. You know?
Let's just say we were highly uninterested in the fire bell until we had everything done except for the fire bell. Then it becomes like, well, that's the last thing. So
right, all of a sudden that thing is missing, and everything else is so close, so why would you skip on that? You know?
It's a huge part of the song.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We were talking about recreating those rooms and environments. So
right.
You could kind of do that in reverbs. A lot of times we reamp with our UR44, which is also our inputs, but on the back we have outputs. So we could set our channels to the outputs and send a signal directly into an amplifier, and we could put some sort of reverb on it or use the spring reverb from the amplifier. You don't like digital reverbs just on a track.
I don't. I just don't think they don't sound realistic or good. And
something about them, so when you actually create it and it's a real thing that actually happened, it just becomes more interesting.
Exactly. That's what, like I said, like in the beginning of this track, there's just something about them being in the room together. And I use the pedal, but I still think, you know what I mean? Like if we were able to reamp or play it together in a room, it would obviously sound better.
It would.
We do that a lot. We just record the bass or guitar in. Maybe we don't get the exact sound right away, and that's a good thing about computers and digital. You have the power to reamp later and get a more correct sound, which I think is better in this environment than like a regular. I think with an original band, if you're just recording, it's best, as Paul McCartney said, just write a simple song, go in and record it as simply as possible.
Yeah.
He said that in his book many years from now, and then he laughed and said, "I wish I could follow my own advice." That's kind of what the Beatles did. It's just like go in. Just do it. It's better to just keep moving and get forward with your own stuff and all that.
We were talking yesterday about the song She Said, She Said. Like anyone else to play that song or just maybe an acoustic version, the song is a lot of what they did to it.
Yeah.
Not so much.
It's a track more than a great.
Like there's some nice melodic ideas, but
it's right. Some nice melodic ideas, cool lyrics, but
really what made it is the Beatles doing it together.
Exactly. The Ringo's drum part and the harmonies and the sound of that recording too. You know, they just always did everything right very quickly. Like they evolved in their ideas. That's something that they do that is very hard for most people to do, including myself, is to let go of an idea and like to admit something's not working and immediately move on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can hear it, like Anthology when you listen to Strawberry Fields, it seems like anyone can do that. when you hear like the first take of Strawberry Fields and then the final product like a few days later. Like they move on from take to take. The ideas develop so quickly, you know.
Yeah,
They're just like, oh, that doesn't feel right. And the next take, it's like 50% better, and then the third take is it. I don't know. They did a lot of takes. White Album, they're doing a lot of takes for sure. But.
I think the rooftop concert's another example of that. How many rehearsals of One After 909 are there where George is like not even playing like good guitar solos and just kind of jamming, and then he goes on the rooftop and it's like some of the best stuff he's ever played.
Right.
The song just came together up there. The day before, there's a rehearsal of it, and it sounds nothing like what happened a day later on the rooftop.
Yeah, and that's a good thing with recording and performances. It is a performance. You gotta catch the feeling of it. Like, listen to I'm Down yesterday, and the first take of I'm Down, Paul sings great. Everyone's playing fine. There's just not like an excitement to that recording that the final recording offers, you know? And it's the same thing with any Beatle track. Like, that's almost the hardest thing to replicate with me is like there's just this they just have this like energy and excitement to almost every track they do, you know, like they're so into what they're doing, and that's what we love. There's something about them. They're just so present and in the moment and willing to share that with everyone, and it comes through, and that's the hardest thing to replicate, not the sounds. You know, sounds are cool, but the way they're playing in that moment is very difficult, you know, sometimes. Yeah, so it's our monkey session.
Unfortunately for this song, we don't have isolated tracks to listen to. Maybe someone does out there.
We listen to a lot of
them.
Please send us isolated tracks. We have a lot of isolated tracks, but not for this one.
But anything that's not on Beatles Rock Band is pretty much not available. So this song's not on Rock Band, not available for isolated tracks. So some of those secret parts haven't been revealed totally yet. So this is just our best guess of what's going on.
It's our best guess. Luckily, some of the stereo Beatles songs are pretty hard panned. So like this one.
Yeah, sometimes you can isolate a song by just hard panning. And
this one, the drums and bass are on the left, so you still hear John's vocal, but you get kind of just the drum and bass sound, and then the guitars are on the right for the most part. So like, that's how I've done it so far. Is I have the track at the top, and I pan it both ways and take a listen and try to match. One of the most depressing things about the whole process to me is I get a mix going and I think it's sounding pretty good, and then I check it against the song, and it's just like.
It's not quite there yet.
It's not quite there. And it never quite gets, you know, there's just something about, you know, the equipment the Beatles were using and them themselves, and like I said, the energy of the moment. You're never going to get it sound, it's just no matter how good of a sound we seem to get, it always seems to sound better. But that's fine. We try to do as best we can for you guys and for ourselves.
Yeah.
Try to be proud. But, there's just a lot of, you know, it just proves to me how special that music really is when it's almost irreplicatable.
That's right.
Is that a word? I don't know. We're using it anyway.
Unreplicable.
Unreplicable.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that.
Yeah, we like to make up words here at Ably House. So, you know.
There's also not any other outtakes of this song, right? This is just the only one we know of.
That's the only one I know of. Once again, if you know if there's a link on YouTube even or something, send us, please, dear God, send us those things.
Yeah.
But the White Album to me that's always been my personal favorite album, and it's a very special album. It's low and fair. There's like 33 songs on it, so it's like double the length, more than double the length of most of the other ones. And it covers so much ground in terms of genres, like from Helter Skelter to Honey Pie. It's
almost organized to be chaotic.
Yes, exactly. But you get literally everything on it. Everything is on that.
Yeah,
record.
Like the sweetest song has to be right before the heaviest song.
Yeah. And I love disc one ending with essentially you get exactly. It's like you get Paul with I Will at his most sentimental, and then you get Julia with John at his most sentimental.
Yeah.
You know, it's like literally like the two camps right there. Like this is my version of the most sentimental sweet song, and this is my version of the most sentimental sweet song.
Of that year, too.
Of that year, right. You know what I mean?
Whatever they're doing at the time.
All right, everybody. We've reached the final stage of the mixing process here. Something I've noticed over the years people talk about, just mixing in the box is, you know, it's nice and easy, but I always like sending it out to some sort of analog sort of mixer or board. It just gives it a more open, better sound. Nothing sounds like a board than the Tascam Porta Studio. But it's kind of a silly machine. But I do really like the sound of these preamps. You know, it's not a Neve, but it's a cool sounding board, and it sounds way more open, 3-dimensional, and realistic than any sort of thing. Like a song with such heavy panning like this one it's really hard to replicate that in Logic, and this has a way better replication of it just because it's you're not digitally doing it. So we got Logic, and we're sending everything to these 4 channels, which are then sending a mix to the half-inch 2-track right here.
Which is 2 channels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a left and right here. So you get a final mix down. So I'll show the layout of this. We got drums in this channel. We got bass in this channel. We got the guitars right here and the Fire Bell there as well. And the levels are pretty much set. Here's the full mix going right now. This. So now let's go through and just listen to the drum channel. A little bit of the bass bleed in there. A pretty good sounding drum track there. We got the Rick bass now coming through here. Nice, pretty sweet. And the guitars coming through here. Is there a Fire Bell even coming up anytime soon? No, the Fire Bell's back. Yeah, let's listen to the Fire Bell. Why not? Here's the just the Fire Bell.
Okay. Sounds nice.
Yeah, sounds nice. Okay, so that's all that. Here's everything back together again.
Cool. You want to run it to tape?
Yeah, I think it's all sounding good. So we got everything. All our tape levels are set right here. We're at 0. We're at 0. Look at that. We're just gonna press record and press play.
All right.
And do a little live fade out towards the end. It's the way to go. All right, here we go. Action. Yeah, that fade out wasn't as quick, but I can fade it out later too and bounce it back in. That's the fun thing with analog is you gotta actually do it. There's no automation, you just actually have to do it. But so that'll be a pretty suitable mix, and yeah, that's how we like to do things here at Ably House. We hope that you learn from this. Maybe we'll do some of these on the future too if we develop some new techniques or anything, but we appreciate you guys checking the videos out.
Maybe we'll take a look at an early song sometime.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to
Some
do that
different
as well.
techniques for the early stuff.
Let us know what you want to see.
Yeah, we're open to it.
We're highly open to whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.